To Dr. Johnson, Edinburgh, March 3rd, 1772. My dear sir, it is hard that I cannot prevail on you to write to me oftener. But I am convinced that it is in vain to expect from you a private correspondence with any regularity. I must therefore look upon you as a fountain of wisdom, from whence few rills are communicated to a distance, and which must be approached at its source to partake fully of its virtues. I am coming to London soon, and am to appear in an appeal from the Court of Sessions in the House of Lords. A schoolmaster in Scotland was, by a court of inferior jurisdiction, deprived of his office. There's a weird symbol down here. I don't know what that means. For being somewhat severe in the chastisement of his scholars. The Court of Sessions, considering it to be a dangerous to the interest of learning and education, to lessen the dignity of teachers and make them afraid of too indulgent parents, instigated by the complaints of their children, restored him. His enemies have appealed to the House of Lords, though the salary is only £20 a year. I was counsel for him here. I hope there will be a little fear of a reversal. I must beg to have your aid in my plan of supporting the decree. It is a general question and not a point of particular law. I am, etc., James Boswell. To James Boswell, Esquire. Dear Sir, that you are coming so soon to town I am very glad, and still more glad that you are coming as an advocate. I think nothing more likely to make your life pass happily away than the consciousness of your own value, which eminence in your profession will certainly confer. If I can give you any collateral help, I hope you do not suspect that it will be wanting. My kindness for you has neither the merit of singular virtue nor the reproach of singular prejudice. Whether to love you be right or wrong, I have many on my side. Mrs. Thrale loves you, and Mrs. Williams loves you, and what would have inclined me to love you if I had been neutral before? You are a very great favorite of Dr. Betty. Dr. Betty, or Beatty, I should have thought much, but that his lady puts him out of my head. She is a very lovely woman. To the injection which you come hither to oppose appears a very cruel and reasonable and impressive. I should think there could not be much doubt of your success. My health grows better, yet thanks for asking. No. My health grows better, yet I am not fully recovered. I believe it is held that men do not recover very fast after 60. I hope you yet to see Beatty's College, and have not given up the western voyage. But however all this may be or not, let us try to make each other happy when we meet, and not refer our pleasure to distant times or distant places. How comes it that you tell me nothing of your lady? I hope to see her sometime. Until then, shall be glad to hear of her. I am, dear sir, and etc., March 15, 1772, Sam Johnson. To Bennet Langton, Esquire, near Spilsby, Lincolnshire. Dear sir, I congratulate you and Lady Rose. Footnote here tells us Mr. Langton married the Countess Dowager of Rhodes. Or Roths, I guess. I congratulate you and Lady Roths on your little man, and hope you will all be many years happy together. Poor Miss Langton can have little part in the joy of her family. She this day called her Aunt Langton to receive the sacraments with her, and made me talk yesterday on such subjects as suit her condition. It will probably be her viaticum. I surely need not mention again that she wishes to see her mother. I am, sir, your most humble servant, March 14, 1772, Sam Johnson. Boswell here. On the 21st of March, I was happy to find myself again in my friend's study, and was glad to see my old acquaintance, Mr. Francis Barber, who is now returned home. Dr. Johnson received me with a hearty welcome, saying, "I am glad you are come, and glad you are come upon such an errand," alluding to the case of the schoolmaster. I said, "I hope, sir, he will be in no danger. It is a very delicate matter to interfere between a master and his scholars, nor do I see how you can fix the degree of severity that a master may use." Johnson said, "Why, sir, till you can fix the degree of obstinacy and negligence of the scholars, you cannot fix the degree of severity of the master. Severity must be continued until obstinacy be subdued, and negligence be cured." He mentioned the severity of Hunter, his own master. "Sir," said I, "Hunter is a Scotch name, so it should seem the schoolmaster who beat you so severely was a Scotsman. I can now account for your prejudice against the Scotch." Johnson said, "Sir, he was not Scotch, and abating his brutality, he was a very good master." We talked of his two political pamphlets, The False Alarm and Thoughts Concerning Falklands Islands. Johnson said, "Well, sir, which of them did you think the best?" I said, "I liked the second best." Johnson said, "Why, sir, I liked the first best, and Beatty liked the first best. Sir, there's a subtlety of disquisition in the first that is worth all the fire of the second." I said, "Pray, sir, is it true that Lord North paid you a visit, and that you got 200 a year in addition to your pension?" He said, "No, sir, except what I had from the bookseller. I did not get a farthing by them." "And between you and me, I believe Lord North is no friend to me." I said, "How so, sir?" He said, "Why, sir, you cannot account for the fancies of men. Well, how does Lord Ellerbach, and how does Lord Monboddo? I said, "Very well, sir. Lord Monboddo still maintains the superiority of the savage life." Johnson said, "What strange narrowness of mind now is that, to think the thinker we have not known are better than the things which we have known. To think the things we have not known are better than the things which we have known." I said, "Why, sir, there is a common prejudice. That is a common prejudice." Johnson said, "Yes, sir, but a common prejudice should not be found in one whose trade it is to rectify error." A gentleman having come in who was to go as a mate in the ship along with Mr. Banks and Dr. Solander, Dr. Johnson asked what were the names of the ships destined for the expedition. The gentleman answered, they were once to be called the Drake and the Raleigh, but now they were to be called the Resolution and the Adventure. Johnson said, "Much better, for had the Raleigh returned without going round the world, it would have been ridiculous. To give their names of the Drake and the Raleigh was laying a trap for a satire." I said, "Had not you some desire to go upon this expedition, sir?" Johnson answered, "Why, yes, but I soon laid it aside. Sir, there is very little of intellectual in the course. Besides, I see but at a small distance. So it was not worth my while to go and to see birds fly, which I should not have seen fly, and fishes swim, which I should not have seen swim." The gentleman being gone, and Dr. Johnson having left the room for some time, a debate rose between the Reverend Mr. Stockdale and Mrs. Desmoulins whether Mr. Banks and Dr. Solander were entitled to any share of glory from their expedition. When Dr. Johnson returned to us, I told him the subject of their dispute. Johnson said, "Why, sir, it was properly for botany that they were out. I believe they thought only of culling of simples." I thanked him for showing civility to Beatty. "Sir," said he, "I should thank you. We all love Beatty. Mrs. Thrale says, if ever she had another husband, she'll have Beatty. He sank upon us that he was married. Else we should have shown his lady more civilities. She is a very fine woman. But how can you show civilities to a nonentity? I did not think he had been married. Nay, I did not think about it one way or another. But he did not tell us of his lady till late. And in case you were missing some footnotes, here's one that comes in relation to when Johnson just said, he sunk upon us that he was married. And it takes the form of a letter from J. Beatty to James Boswell. So this is a footnote. To James Boswell, Esquire, Edinburgh, March 3rd, 1792. So 20 years later, in fact, from when the rest of this has been. My dear sir, as I suppose your great work will soon be reprinted. That's talking about this book. A little meta here. We're talking about the book we're reading, a previous edition. I beg leave to trouble you with a remark on a passage of it in which I am a little misrepresented. Be not alarmed. The misrepresentation is not imputable to you. Not having the book at hand, I cannot specify the page, but I suppose you will easily find it. Dr. Johnson says, speaking of Mrs. Thrale's family, Dr. Beatty sunk upon us that he was married, or words to that purpose. I am not sure that I understood sunk upon us, which is a very uncommon phrase, but it seems to me to imply, and others I find have understood it in the same sense, studiously concealed from us his being married. Now, sir, this was not by no means the case. I could not have no motive to conceal a circumstance of which I never was nor can be ashamed, and of which Dr. Johnson seemed to think, when he afterwards became acquainted with Mrs. Beatty, that I had, as was true, reason to be proud. So far was I from concealing her, that my wife had at that time almost as numerous an acquaintance in London as I had myself, and was, not very long after, kindly invited and elegantly entertained at Streatham by Mr. and Mrs. Thrale. My request, therefore, is that you would rectify this matter in your new edition. You are at the liberty to make what use you please of this letter. My best wishes ever attend you and your family. Believe me to be, with the utmost regard and esteem, dear sir, your obliged and affectionate humble servant, J. Beatty. Boswell here. I have, from my respect for my friend Miss Dr. Beatty, and regard to this extreme sensibility, inserted the foregoing letter, though I cannot but wonder at his considering at an imputation a phrase commonly used among the best friends. Okay, everybody's so fucking uptight back then, huh? You know, I wouldn't even notice that until I wrote a whole damn letter about it. And also, it's interesting that that phrase, you're obliged and affectionate humble servant, it spans about 100 years, probably. I wonder when that went out of style. Anywho, let's get back. So, we're back to March 1772 now. That was a Saturday, 21st of March. Johnson then spoke of St. Kilda, the most remote of the Hebrides. I told him I thought of buying it. Johnson said, Pray do, sir, we will go and pass a winter amidst the blast there. We shall have fine fish, and we will make some dried tongues with us. We will take some dried tongues with us. And some books. We will have a strong built vessel, and some Orkney men to navigate her. We must build a tolerable house. Oh, this sounds like a pipe dream. We must build a tolerable house. I can't get to the next page. We must build a tolerable house. But we may carry with us a wooden house ready-made, and requiring nothing but to be put up. Consider, sir, by buying St. Kilda, you may keep the people from falling into worse hands. We must give them a clergyman, and he shall be one of Beatty's choosing. He shall be educated at Marsical College. I'll be your Lord Chancellor, or what you please. I said, Are you serious, sir, in advising me to buy St. Kilda? For if you should advise me to go to Japan, I believe I should do so. Johnson said, Why, yes, sir, I am serious. Then I said, Why, then, I'll see what can be done. I gave an account of the two parties in the Church of Scotland, those for supporting the rights of patrons independent of the people, and those against it. Johnson said, "It should be settled one way or another. I cannot wish well to a popular election of the clergy when I consider that it occasions such animosities, such unworthy courting of the people, such slanders between the contending parties, and other disadvantages. It is enough to allow the people to remonstrate against the nomination of his minister for solid reasons." I suppose he meant heresy or immorality. He was engaged to dine abroad and asked me to return to him in the evening, at 9, which I accordingly did. We drank tea with Mrs. Williams, who told us a story of second sight, which happened in Wales where she was born. He listened to it very attentively and said he should be glad to have some instances of that faculty well authenticated. His elevated wish for more and more evidence for spirit in opposition to the groveling belief of materialism led him to a love of such mysterious disquisitions. He again justly observed that we could have no certainty of the truth of supernatural appearances, unless something was told of which we could not know by ordinary means, or something done which could not be done but by supernatural power. That Pharaoh in reason and justice required such evidence from Moses, nay, that our Saviour said, "If I had not done among them the works which none other man did, they had not had sin." He had said in the morning that Macaulay's History of St. Kilda was very well written, except some foppery about liberty and slavery. I mentioned to him that Macaulay told me he was advised to leave out his book the wonderful story that upon the approach of a stranger all the inhabitants catch cold. See page 390, I remember that. But that it had been so well authenticated, he determined to retain it. Johnson said, "Sir, to leave things out of a book merely because people tell you that they will not be believed is meanness." Macaulay acted with much magnanimity. Magnanimity? Oh, the humanity. All right, here we go again. "We talked of the Roman Catholic religion and how little difference there is in essential matters between ours and it." Johnson said, "True, sir, all denominations of Christians have really little difference in point of doctrine, though they may differ widely in external forms. There is a prodigious difference between the external form of one of your Presbyterian churches in Scotland and a church in Italy, yet the doctrine taught is essentially the same." I mentioned the petition to Parliament for removing the subscription to the 39 Articles. Johnson said, "It was soon thrown out, sir. They talk of not making boys at the university subscribe to what they do not understand. But they ought to consider that our universities were founded to bring up members for the Church of England, and we must not supply our enemies with arms from our own arsenal. No, sir, the meaning of subscribing is not that they fully understand all the articles, but that they will adhere to the Church of England. Now, take it in this way, and suppose that they should only subscribe their adherence to the Church of England, there would be still the same difficulty, for still the young men would be subscribing to what they do not understand. For if you should ask them, 'What do you mean by the Church of England? Do you know in what it differs from the Presbyterian Church, from the Roman Church, from the Greek Church, from the Coptic Church?' They could not tell you. So, sir, it comes to the same thing." I said, "But, sir, would it not be sufficient to subscribe the Bible?" And Johnson said, "Why, no, sir, for all sects will subscribe to the Bible. Nay, the Mohammedans will subscribe the Bible, for the Mohammedans acknowledge Jesus Christ as well as Moses, but maintain that God sent Muhammad as a still greater prophet than either." Okay. That's a good place to stop. Next page. Till the next time, bye from the Boz, man.